Imagine waking up on a calm Texas morning, reaching for your phone to check your bank balance, and realizing that $50,000 is gone. No warning, no explanation, just a cold, empty account staring back at you. That's what happened to 48-year-old Mark Davis from Dallas, Texas, a man who worked hard his whole life, suddenly plunged into fear, anger, and sleepless nights. But what came next, the way he turned the tables on the scammers, is a lesson every one of us needs to hear. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love seeing the bite crime community all over the map. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support is what keeps us bringing you these chilling, educational, and true cybercrime stories. Now sit back. Let's begin. Mark Davis had always been a cautious man. At 48, he was a devoted father of 2 grown kids, a mid-level operations manager at a shipping company, and the kind of guy who double-checked the locks before bed. He lived in a modest 2-story home in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas. Life wasn't flashy, but it was stable. That $50,000 in his savings account, it wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was college tuition for his younger daughter, a safety net for emergencies, and a quiet promise to himself that his family would always have something to fall back on. All of that changed one quiet Saturday morning in late spring. Mark woke up at 6:15 a.m., just as he had for years. He brewed his morning coffee, settled by the window as the Texas sunrise painted the sky in pale gold. Out of habit, he opened his banking app to check his accounts. At first, he thought there was a glitch. The balance looked wrong, like a few zeros had gone missing. He rubbed his eyes, refreshed the app, and that's when the realization hit. The savings account, his lifeline, had been emptied overnight. No, he muttered under his breath, heart pounding. He scrolled through the transaction list, each line showing another withdrawal, each timestamp like a punch to the gut. Transfers to unfamiliar accounts, multiple amounts, perfectly timed to bypass daily limits. Mark felt the room spin. For a moment, he thought he might pass out. He sat back, staring at the screen, feeling as if the floor had been ripped out from under him. He called his bank's fraud hotline immediately. The wait time felt endless. When agent finally picked up, their calm, scripted responses only made the situation worse. "We're flagging the transactions now, Mr. Davis, but unfortunately, many of them have already cleared. We'll open an investigation." He heard the words, but they didn't register. All he could think about was a number. $50,000, gone. By the afternoon, he had called the bank 4 more times, each conversation leaving him more frustrated. He felt ashamed, as if it failed his family. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Instead, he stared at the ceiling, replaying every online purchase, every link he had ever clicked. Where had he gone wrong? Mark wasn't careless. He didn't click on shady links, at least not that he remembered. He didn't share his banking details with strangers. But as he thought back, he recalled an email from a few weeks earlier, one that looked exactly like a message from his bank. It had warned him about unusual login activity and prompted him to confirm his credentials. The email had the same logo, the same tone. In his busy morning rush at work, he hadn't thought twice. He clicked. He entered his login. Now he felt sick with realization. Pause for a moment and think, had you ever clicked a link that looked official but later seemed suspicious? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else avoid the same mistake. The following Monday, Mark went to his local branch in Dallas. The bank's fraud department promised to cooperate with federal investigators because the stolen funds had crossed state lines, a potential federal cyber fraud case. A detective from the Texas Department of Public Safety's Cybercrime unit met Mark at the branch. Detective Carla Reynolds, a seasoned investigator with calm, sharp eyes, asked detailed questions. Did you receive any suspicious calls? Any recent password resets? Any unusual devices logged into your account? Mark admitted the truth about the email. Reynolds nodded grimly. It sounds like a classic phishing scheme. These groups often operate overseas. But don't give up. We brought down networks like this before. For the first time since the ordeal began, Mark felt a flicker of hope. Investigators traced the transfers to a maze of accounts. some in neighboring states like Oklahoma and Arkansas, others routed through crypto exchanges. The initial suspicion pointed to a local ring in Dallas that had been on the FBI's radar for laundering stolen funds through digital wallets. But when agents raided a suspected drop address, they found only an empty apartment with a cheap burner phone and a handwritten list of more than 200 email addresses. Whoever had drained Mark's account was one step ahead. As the investigation dragged on, Mark's life unraveled. He became withdrawn, avoiding friends and even his grown children. He felt humiliated. A man who prided himself on protecting his family, now the victim of a faceless criminal somewhere behind a screen. Detective Reynolds checked in often, but progress was slow. She encouraged him to document everything, including any strange calls or emails. Mark started keeping a notebook by his bedside. On one restless night, unable to sleep, he flipped through the pages and realized something. Many of the fraudulent transfers happened during the same hours of the night. He mentioned it to Reynolds the next day. Her eyes narrowed. That's not random. It suggests a scheduled attack, maybe even a botnet working off a stolen login. Weeks later, just as Mark was losing hope, he received an email that nearly stopped his heart. It appeared to be from a cryptocurrency exchange he had never used. The message read, "Your recent transfer of $12,000 has been flagged for verification. Click here to confirm your identity or your account will be locked." But here's the chilling part. The email referenced a stolen bank account number and included details only the original scammers could have known. Mark's hands trembled as he hovered over the link. He didn't click. Instead, he took a screenshot and sent it straight to Detective Reynolds. Within hours, Reynolds called him back. "Mr. Davis, I think we just found a thread that could unravel the entire network." The screenshot Mark sent turned out to be the missing piece investigators needed. The link in the email led to a newly registered domain hosted in Eastern Europe, a digital doorway that connected several ongoing cases of financial fraud in the U.S. Detective Reynolds immediately brought in the FBI's cyber division. By cross-referencing IP addresses from the phishing emails with the logs from the cryptocurrency exchange, they identified a money mule network operating across 3 states, Texas, Florida, and Nevada. The operation was bigger than anyone expected. The network had scammed hundreds of victims nationwide, moving millions through crypto wallets and cash-out services. For the first time since the nightmare began, Mark felt a sense of purpose. He became a key witness and cooperated with the FBI, providing every detail he could remember: the phishing email, the fake exchange notice, even the timeline he had documented in his bedside notebook. Detective Reynolds told him, "You've done more than most victims ever can. This could help us shut them down." Mark felt a flicker of pride. It didn't erase the pain of losing his savings, but it gave the ordeal meaning. Weeks of surveillance paid off. FBI agents traced the crypto wallets to a rented townhouse in Miami, Florida. From the outside, it looked like a typical short-term rental, but inside, it was a nerve center of laptops, burner phones, and routers bouncing signals through VPNs. The decision was made to set a trap. The phishing network was about to run another large transfer, targeting a small Texas credit union. Agents coordinated with the bank to allow the transfer to proceed just far enough to capture live data. At dawn on a rainy Tuesday, federal agents moved in. Arrests were made without incident. Among those detained was a 32-year-old man identified as the technical architect behind the phishing kits. He had quietly sold his services to cybercriminals around the world. When Mark learned about the arrests, his emotions were complicated. There was relief, of course, but there was also anger at how easy it had been for strangers halfway across the country to upend his life, and at himself for trusting that first fake email. He told Detective Reynolds in one of their final calls, "I keep thinking, I should have known. I should have seen the signs." Reynolds replied gently, "Cybercriminals count on that guilt. But remember, they designed these scams to look real. Sharing your story will protect others." That was the first time Mark realized he wasn't just a victim anymore. He had become an advocate. In the months that followed, prosecutors built a case not just for Mark's theft, but for dozens of others. The defendants were charged with wire fraud, conspiracy, and aggravated identity theft. Evidence included the seized laptops, phishing templates, fake banking websites, and the logs on the very email that had trapped Mark. At the sentencing, the lead defendant, the one who wrote the phishing code, received 18 years in federal prison. Restitution was ordered, but victims were told recovery would be partial at best. Mark eventually recovered about $22,000 through a combination of insurance and frozen assets. But the rest was gone. Mark chose to speak publicly about his experience. In interviews and webinars hosted by community banks, he emphasized 3 lessons. Never click on links in unexpected emails. Always go directly to your bank's official site. Enable 2-factor authentication on all financial accounts. Act fast and report suspicious activity immediately. Early reports often help law enforcement freeze transfers before they vanish overseas. His courage in sharing not only helped other victims feel less alone, but also educated countless others about the tactics of phishing scammers. One detail that stuck with investigators was that the Miami cell scammers hadn't chosen Mark randomly. Through dark web data dumps, they had obtained leaked email and password pairs from an old retail breach. Mark had reused that password for his bank account. That small oversight, common among millions of people, had made him a target. It was a sobering reminder that in the digital age, even ordinary habits can become vulnerabilities. Months after the trial, Mark stood in front of a small audience at a Dallas community center. He wasn't a natural speaker, but his voice was steady. "I lost more than money," he said. "I lost sleep, trust, a piece of my peace of mind. But if sharing my mistakes keeps even one of you from going through what I did, it's worth it." The room was silent, then filled with quiet applause. Mark smiled for the first time in a long while, not because everything was fixed, but because something good had come from the ordeal. Detective Reynolds kept in touch. She later told Mark that his case had helped him uncover an entire phishing toolkit ring operating internationally. It was a rare win in the endless cat-and-mouse game of cybercrime. Mark still checks his accounts every morning, but now he uses unique passwords, a password manager, and 2-factor authentication. The experience changed him, cautious but wiser, and determined to keep warning others. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this powerful story. If Mark's experience moved you, or opened your eyes to how easily online fraud can happen, please give this video a like. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you or someone you know ever faced a similar scam? Sharing your story might help others stay safe. And most importantly, subscribe to Bite Crimes. Your support is what motivates us to keep bringing you chilling, informational, and educational true crime stories about the dark side of the internet. Together, we can stay alert and stay safer.